In the 1980s, 11-year-old David Glatzel displayed apparent behavior and recollections seemingly deduced as demonic possession. His family decided to seek aid from the notorious paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren in order to exorcise the entity. According to eyewitnesses, during one of those rituals, one of the family acquaintances, Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, who was dating the elder sister Debbie Gladson at the time, coerced the demon to take him instead of the child. This is just the beginning of a curious case. On February 16, 1981, Arnie Johnson started acting erratically and kills his landlord, Alan Bono, with multiple stabs with a pocket knife. Because of the implied blackout of the events, Arnie and his lawyer pleaded for a not guilty verdict due to demonic possession, a case never before seen in Brookfield, Connecticut, let alone in the United States. This became a media sensation to the point that it inspired the controversial book The Devil in Connecticut, as well as movies like The Demon Murder Case and today's subject. The Conjuring films. Ever since the first movie, this one kind of imploded into its own franchise. It kind of became the modern Amityville films, in which basically it takes on one of those cases in which there was some apparent paranormal case, and then make a movie out of it. In this case, the Conjuring films are centered on the paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Not gonna lie, that during the long run of that franchise, I am having a lot of fun. I mean, just like always, I am more interested on the real life cases than what the movie portrays. Even though, for the sake of the benefit of the doubt, the movies are doing kind of like a good job to bring us the attention of those, and as well as making some corny horror movie in order to scare the audience, making them think that, wow, these things happen for real, when a lot of things are kind of really doubtful. It's doubtful. We got the mainline films like the Conjuring movies, the Annabelle films that I think I talked about. The last one I think it was 2 years ago, and of course like the Curse of La Llorona, which personally of the long line, this is the worst of the films. But now we got this one, the third Conjuring film, in which they decided to name The Devil Made Me Do It. Which every time I hear that title, I respond with, "Bitch, are you for real?" Yeah, that thing always stuck in my mind. But just like always, the real life case intrigued me to the point that before I went to see the movie, I decided to take a peek on the real life case of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. Sorry for the ambulance. I live near a hospital just in case. But anyway, the thing is that this is a case that it got media sensation because it was the first time in which someone wanted to plead a non-guilty verdict due to demonic possession, which nowadays, you know that when someone says that, the court will laugh your ass off and they say that you're bullshitting, so it's no excuse what you did. And in this case, it's obviously that these things are they don't have kind of like concrete proof that you can claim your innocence. At least in this case, I know that they technically just pleaded for a self-defense murder, according to some of the retellings of the witnesses and the description of what might have happened. So I know that at least I will say that it ended fine with Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. He was sentenced for 10 to 20-year-old prison, but I think that it was because of his good conduct that he only stayed for 5 years and then he was released. And yeah, he got married while in prison. But anyway, this is also one of those interesting cases that also involves the Ed and Lorraine Warren, which I go a little bit far on the Conjuring films. I do have to admit that this couple got me intrigued ever since the first movie. I began to see a little bit more of those cases, mostly because I am fascinated with the paranormal. Whether it is true or false, or it's a hoax or real, there's still something fascinating in it. I do remember that the first Conjuring movie, I do remember that it was pretty good. The second one was also pretty good, but honestly, most of the time I was kind of rolling my eyes out, because when I investigated about the case, it was really, really obvious that the poltergeist of Enfield, I think it was called, there is definite proof that it was all made up, it was fake. So much of the credibility of the Ed and Lorraine Warrens, which up to this day many people really are debating if these were con artists or something like that. No disrespect to the couple, rest their souls, because both of them are now dead. But now, I think it is time to me to talk to you on the movie itself, in which I just went to see it. I went there informed about the Devil Made Me Do It case, and always having in my mind that every time I hear the title, I go, "Bitch, are you for real?" Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, my thoughts of this movie is that of the 3 Conjuring movies, is the weakest of them all. It's a really weak film compared to the other ones, because this time James Wan is not on the director's chair. This one was directed by the guy who made The Curse of La Llorona, which sounds like really bad news considering that I really didn't like this film. But for the benefit of the doubt, this movie is better than The Curse of La Llorona. But that does say much that the execution of this film wasn't exactly something that you should applaud so much, because it has problems. It has problems in the sake of a narrative or what it is trying to tell us about this story. Most of them kind of comes like in my personal preference on how this movie could have been. But at least in the sense of a movie based on an interesting case, I was entertained. I was really, really entertained on that, and makes me think that, you know what, maybe a lot of these things that the movie is showing us is pure fiction, but man, that considering that where it comes from, that is something that it attracts me. So the movie actually just starts out with the exorcism of David Glatzel, the kid that was seemingly possessed by demons, and they had Ed and Lorraine Warren going there trying to exorcise the demon out of the child until Arnie Johnson comes and tells the devil that take him instead of the child. In which, yeah, this is basically kind of like how the case opens, at least as a background of where this kind of happened. And then, of course, it ends up with Arnie Johnson, of course, having these demonic blackouts, and it culminates with him murdering his landlord. And of course, he's arrested for manslaughter. Even though the movie kind of exaggerates, saying that he got 20 stabs, when in reality, according to the documents, he was stabbed like 5 or 4 times on in multiple parts of the body. And the guy is basically charged for manslaughter, and technically, I think that in Connecticut it is also a probability for a capital punishment. So Ed and Lorraine Warren decides to take the case. They go to the lawyer and they say that, well, the guy says that he was possessed by a demon, and the lawyer is like,
"Bitch, are you for real?"
Yeah, she was like, what the? Well, no, I can't take that defense. I mean, yeah, you can't say that in court. We have law. You need probable evidence. And even Ed and Lorraine Warren is like, you know that we have some kind of proof. I mean, come to our house. We got the animal doll and everything. And then we go to the kind of like the first part of the trial, and went to the lawyer is like, well, we plead a non-guilty verdict because of demonic possession. And everyone in the court is like,
"Bitch, are you for real?"
Yeah, they become flabbergasted. Because, so then the movie kind of becomes this kind of like paranormal Phoenix Wright investigation case in which the Ed and Lorraine Warren, they just trying to find out kind of like concrete evidence in order to prove that Arnie Johnson killed the guy due to demonic possessions. And because this is a universe in which ghosts exist, and even, well, everyone has even eyewitness testimony and probably even cameras proving that probably there is ghosts, then of course you know that it happens. And just like any Conjuring movie, it is filled with Lorraine having her psychic powers. We also have a subplot in which involves Ed Warren, in which, because of the events from the last time, he has kind of like a stroke that gives him a heart condition, and now he has to walk with a stick and be dependent on heart medication. And well, let's say that the movie, it also involves witchcraft, which is a little bit also part of some of the speculations that probably the David Gladson kid, maybe he got cursed because apparently the mother and the sister, they were involved with witchcraft from their friends or something like that. This is kind of like the basis I kind of recollect from my investigations. But in this case, apparently there is this witch who goes around different houses and she plants kind of like this small totem poles made of bones, in which when you put it there, that means that she's gonna curse someone to death. Well, why? Because demonic people don't need a reason. They just live for the blood. That's the least I could say about the story of the movie without spoiling too much. A lot of the spoilers you're gonna see it when you investigate the real life case. And now the cinematographic elements. I will say that a lot of the Conjuring movies, one of their strongest features is their acting. The acting in this one is no exception, in which it is really good. There wasn't kind of like a single time in which the acting becomes kind of like cringy or hammy or overacting. They do have the actors really do a good job portraying their characters, especially of course Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as the Warren couple. Over the course of 3 movies and the other spin-offs, you can tell that these 2 actors do manage to create a chemistry between the paranormal investigators. Although I am pretty sure that the Warren couple weren't so lovey-dovey, in which I gotta admit that sometimes when these lovey-dovey moments between the Warren couple in any of those movies, it becomes either kind of like sweet, but at the same time it kind of becomes like a little bit too cringy, because again, I doubted that the Warren couple were too lovey-dovey. Although I did hear that they had kind of like a healthy relationship. I mean they stayed married until death do them apart, and they had a daughter who's still alive, and she and her husband are actually now taking care of the haunted basement where they lock up their haunted artifacts, which is now a museum, which I am actually in the balance if I want to go there or not, at least to visit it, because, well, again, I'm fascinated with the whole thing. But either way, good job on the acting on this one. Even on the other characters, the guy who played Arnie Johnson and his soon-to-be wife Debbie, and even the kid and everything, everyone is doing their part. My only biggest gripe that I have with, technically not in the acting department, is mostly on the casting department, because I don't know how they do it. Why these people, they didn't have the effort to make the actors look like the real thing. Because when you look at the picture of the real life Ed and Lorraine Warren, they don't look like Patrick Wilson or Vera Farmiga. Not even for a makeup. They didn't bother to make a makeup to make them look like the real life things. So this kind of bothered me a lot, even on this movie. Even in this case, they made. Look at how can I say? Not even Arnie Johnson looked like the real Arnie Johnson. I mean, look at the actor and look at the real thing. The actor kind of looks like like he came out from the Tobey Maguire club, while the real life guy, according to this picture, he kind of looks like a little bit like Andrew the Giant. So I think that they could have done a little bit extra effort to make the cast look like the real thing. But honestly, what I'm telling you is pretty much a kind of like nitpicky in a sense or another. What else there is? If I have to say about the scares, I would say that some of the scares were really effective. Not as grand effective like the other movies, but what I'm glad is that when there are some moments with fake jump scares, well, there is some, and it can be annoying. Thank goodness that they don't follow it with an orchestra string, that it is used, that the noise is technically used for to tell the audience, now get scared, boom. No, they don't do that, luckily. This one, the scares, this one shows off that they were meticulously trying their best to build up the atmosphere. And there were some good shots, I gotta admit. Probably I will say that one of my favorite shots, it was a moment in which one of the characters is in the bathtub, and there's the curtain, and it feels scared, and then you see kind of like a shot of of the curtains with the what was it with the clasp that holds the curtains, and I like that there was a shot in which it looks like the kind of like the curtain clasp, but in reality it is kind of like the ghost fingers that then slowly disappears. And I was like, whoa! I thought that was the rest of the curtains. And that was one of those shots. Yeah, some of the scares are really in the typical ghost scene in which, you know, they scare you, and then they disappear, making you question why they don't take advantage of that eventually. If I have to say, of course, for the few appearances of the ghost kind of looks like a ramshackle version of the villain from No Country for Old Men, and there is also a witch in which it kind of dressed in black. She's a competent villain, I'll say. But I also will say that the movie also involves a kind of like this fat zombie, in which I find it both hilarious but at the same time creepy. That's pretty much I have to say about in the level of scares of this movie. And finally, I think that I have to say what is probably the movie's biggest weakness, which I think it is the choice of the narrative. Because the whole movie, even the trailer, it was marketed that we're gonna focus on the Arnie Johnson trial, and it was gonna be kind of like a court case that it involves the paranormal. And I wished it could have been that, because this is one of those cases that brought up kind of one of the most important things about the judicial system, in which we should not accept technically cases in which someone spout out and saying, well, I committed this murder, but I think I didn't do it because I was possessed by the devil. And everyone is like, really? No, you can't say that in court. Even when, I think that it was during this day and age in which a lot of people were pretty sensitive on their religious and supernatural subject matter. I'm not trying to be exactly 100% a skeptic. I'm just trying to build kind of like a ground into this. And in the case of the movie, I think that this part would have been really, really interesting. But unfortunately, they wanted to build up some kind of a villain, in which, of course, we got Ed and Lorraine Warren investigating that the whole thing really started out with the possession of David Gladson, and of course they have to follow suit. The whole investigation about where it comes from. They pinpoint, this. They pinpoint that. There might be clues with another case. All kind of like having this investigative witch hunt, literal witch hunt, in which, well, but every time where they go there, in my head it was like, isn't this movie supposed to be about the Arnie Johnson trial? Because whenever these moments happen, you kind of begin to forget that we were supposed to be watching a movie about the Arnie Johnson trial. But most of the time when we cut back to that, it only shows scenes of Arnie Johnson being in jail, and then he is having demonic visions, in which, funnily enough, a lot of his, spasms, he is being witnessed by apparently the night shift guard and probably other people who were with him. I am pretty sure that if that happened in real life, even the night shift guard will testify and say that, you know what, I think this guy might have been onto something because he began to act like he was freaking scared of something. I don't know if it was kind of like demonic possession or he got schizophrenia or something like that, but something was off with this. And even during the climax, there was a moment in which if she was there, she was like, frick, and now I think I'm starting to believe in ghosts. So yeah, those are nitpicks that if you wanted to put some ground into the reality of the case and what the movie is exaggerating, you kind of, well, let's say that it blows out of proportion and makes the movie, well, unintentionally funny, even if the movies didn't want it to do that, considering how serious they wanted to do with the subject matter. So basically, yeah, this witch totem thing, it kind of begins to feel like a distraction from the real case. Although for the benefit of the doubt, it does have some link with what is happening with the trial case. But in my head, I think that the movie could have been more interested if they focused a little bit more on the judicial system and actually wanted to see how Ed and Lorraine Warren kind of tried their best with a legit court or even detectives working out trying to have some legitimate proof that this case might have some paranormal reason that there is, in which of course they couldn't find solid evidence for that. This is why probably one of my favorite moments, in which it was a little bit corny, is that when Ed and Lorraine Warren they talk with the lawyer and then to the detective. I'm glad that either the lawyer or the detective, they didn't make them kind of like an asshole or a skeptic asshole. I say, yeah, right, you're an asshole, or you're making stuff up and something like that. No, you see them as reasonable people, in which they say that, yeah, you have your beliefs, I have my beliefs, but either way, you can't just come out to me and saying that this boy is innocent due to demonic possessions, because still a murder happened, and when you say that the court system cannot accept something like that, and so although yeah, it kind of goes a little bit when Lorraine kind of tested her psychic skills to the detective. And that was a little bit corny, but you know what? I at least give it the benefit of the doubt that they didn't make, asshole-ish skeptics. Also, remember that I mentioned that they wanted to make kind of like a subplot of Ed Warren, that after the incident with David Gladson, he becomes hospitalized and he has some heart condition in which he had to be dependent on medicine. Let's say that, honestly, that made me worried, because considering that Hollywood likes to take creative liberties, I was afraid that they're gonna kill off Ed Warren like that, because they kind of give this moment kind of like for some thrill or something like that. But I was like, no, you can't do that, because Ed didn't die in 1981. He died in 2006. So it's gonna take a while for that. And luckily it didn't do that. It didn't do that. Thank goodness. And you know what? I think I talk enough about the Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. The third of the main line of the Conjuring films, which exaggerates a real life case. Do I recommend this movie? Well, if you watch the other movies, I will say that give it a watch. Not exactly on the movie theaters. I will say that it's mostly a kind of like a rental film. Again, of the three movies, it's probably the weakest. But it's not kind of like the weakest that it kills off the franchise. No, I leave that to The Curse of La Llorona. Or probably also The Nun. The Nun was pretty boring from what I can remember. But in this case, I can give it a kind of like a really solid review. Technically kind of like a B if I have to grade it like a grade school teacher. And if you think that my opinion differs to you, well, it's not my fault. The devil made me do it.
Bitch, are you for real?